Well, welcome to Riding Mower King. We're going to look at this little Toro wheel horse. This is a 1638 HXL Hydro. And you saw this run in a previous video when I got it in. I had it running a little bit. Of course, it smoked. And the oil was way, way over full. It had a lot of gas in the oil. So I changed the oil. I drained it. I refilled it. And it's going to get done again just to get all the gas out of it. And you always kind of wonder, why did the gas go into the engine like that? And usually it's going to be because the needle valves either got dirt in it where it didn't seat all the way, or possibly the gas cap vent is clogged. This gas cap was cracked, so I put another gas cap on it from another mower. So I'm sure that's not really the problem. And I put a little bit of gas in it yesterday. I let it sit, so it's been sitting about 24 hours. And the carburetor, I took the carburetor off so that I can see in the other side of it. And here you can tell the carburetor is getting wet. Even down here on the bottom, the carburetor is wet. So, when it gets gas up in here, when you're getting gas up in here, that's the needle valve leaking. That has nothing to do with this valve on the bottom here. That's only an anti-backfire valve. That's so that the gas does not go through the jet into the engine when you turn the key off. That does not stop gas from going into the carburetor. It stops gas from going through the carburetor into the engine the way that it's supposed to go when it's running. That has nothing to do with gas getting in the carburetor and overflowing the carburetor, which that's what happens when the needle valve goes bad. So, anybody that thinks that's the problem, that has nothing to do with the carburetor overflowing. That's only to stop gas from going in the normal way when you turn off the key. So we're going to take this carburetor apart, see what that needle valve looks like, and hopefully I have the parts to repair that. But we're going to put this thing together, and we're going to test it out a little bit, and this is going to be ready to sell. Because overall, the tractor is pretty nice yet. It's got a good seat on it. The hood was replaced a couple years ago. So we're going to get into taking this carburetor apart. All right, so we're going to take this apart, see what it looks like inside. If this wrench will fit in there. No, you need a really thin wrench for that, 1/2 inch. And I have one that will fit in there. So I have one wrench. It's already a really thin wrench, but I did grind it down a little bit on one side to get in there because there's not much space. So I guess they figure they don't want people taking this apart unless they have the tools, which means they should know what they're doing. So basically, they don't want people to touch this. There we go. You hear the sound change. It was starting to come loose. So there is a little bit of dirt in the bottom of the bowl right there. We really can't say all that dirt was from inside because obviously some of it was from outside. But the gas is pretty dark. I'm pretty sure I have another gasket for this, so we're going to take this one off. This one is getting pretty elastic. Getting kind of stretchy. The rubber's getting wore out. So now this did run okay, so I'm not going to be too concerned with cleaning it. Really just want to focus on the needle valve in there. So we're going to push this pin across here so I can pull it out. So now I guess somewhat luckily, this is a rubber tip needle here. So I don't need to worry about getting the seat out. I don't, you know, it doesn't have a rubber seat. So I don't really need to worry about that. We're going to wipe this off a little bit. I do see a little bit of marking on the tip. In general, these are cheap enough that you just put a new one in, if you have one. So we're going to look down in there at the seat. Yeah, I don't see anything wrong with the seat. It's pretty clean down in there. This whole carburetor is actually really clean. So like I said, I'm not going to really be concerned about cleaning the carburetor. I'll spray the outside of it once I'm done. Get all that residue off of it. So now I'll go see if I have a needle valve for this. I may have to order it. All right, so I do have a new needle valve here. And that's the part number, 231855S. Now this one has a black tip. This one has a red tip. So this might be an OEM from the factory, and this is branded Briggs & Stratton. But at some point, maybe they went with a better material. I'm sure there's an expert out there somewhere that knows why it's a different color. But for me, it looks like it's the exact same thing, just a different color. It looks like the float level might be just a little high, and I don't know of any way to make an adjustment on that. Like it's a little bit higher than level, but the float's not bottoming out on anything, so it's still gonna turn off the fuel. So we're gonna put this together with this one and see how it works. And here we have a new gasket. New seal, 281165S. This is the kind of thing, it's always easier to do this with the carburetor off, because this is such a small piece. To get it seated on there correctly, it's a real challenge. Oh, there we go. That fits on there pretty nice. Give this a little squirt. There we go. Good as new. And that feels like it's fine. It's not clogged up or anything. Not gummed up at all. So we're going to put that right back in the way it was. Always make sure that the bowl is on there nice and square. That you don't have any gaps that you don't have all the way around. Otherwise you'll bend it and you need a new bowl. Alright, so we're going to take this and we're going to clean all this residue off the outside. And we're going to put it back together and see how it works. Alright, so here we can see I had already put a fuel shutoff on here. I try to put those on every riding mower that's at least a gravity feed, just for a little bit of extra insurance. And you can get those on Amazon pretty cheap. And if you think you're going to save money by buying a whole batch of them, like 10 of them for $12 or $13, those are the ones to stay away from. Because obviously I've tried those, and they leak after a couple days. The ethanol attacks them, and they swell up and start leaking. So you have to spend maybe $4 or $5 a piece on the bottom end. You know, cheap ones, if you can get them in bulk, say 10 or 15 of them, you got to pay for them. The cheap ones are just going to be trouble. Now you go in the hardware store, or, you know, Lowe's or something like that, they're probably $10 or $12 a piece right now. I think the last time I actually bought them in the store they were like $7. And you know, that adds up if you do a lot of volume. At the end of the year, that adds up. Obviously, professional mower shops are going to have their supplier like Rotary or Stens or somebody like that. But I don't have that. So I order a lot of stuff online. But you have to pay more than a couple dollars a piece if you want something like that works. Otherwise, you're going to run into trouble in the long run. So we're going to bolt this back on here. For this, you need a 5/16 deep socket. Tighten these guys back up. And we plug in our anti-backfire connector here, one way or the other. There we go. Now we'll put a new fuel filter on there, because why not? That could have been the problem. That piece of dirt got through there. Although you would think that the dirtier the filter gets, the more it's going to filter, because it's going to be clogged up and let less fuel get through there. To the point where it don't run, well, we're in the opposite direction. We're getting too much gas. And another thing you want to watch for with getting the really cheap fuel filters, and this one wasn't super expensive, hope it stays together, but I've already seen fuel filters that don't have any barbs on the hose. You have to stay away from them. You need that barb to keep it from sliding apart. Even if you put a clamp on it, you still need a barb on there. I've seen that mostly on the big clear ones with the paper elements in them. They don't all have a barb, and they will come apart. Now I put the housing on here. Now on this one, the vent goes up here. Some of the newer ones, it goes in the side. So we have to get that back into the hole here. And there is a seal in here. Started to come out a little bit, like a square O-ring that fits in there to seal up the housing to the carburetor. So you don't want to forget about that. We get the screws lined up. And this one still had the screw up here. There's almost always a third mounting screw for these housings. So you don't want to forget that. And it's already had basically a new air filter on it. Well, we need to tighten that screw down yet. So we're going to open that up. And I'm going to put more fuel in there. And then we're going to come back in a couple days, and I might just take the intake screws off just to make sure it's dry. Just to make sure that it's not leaking. But I'm probably going to test drive it before that. Because the grass is starting to grow and I need to start cutting. And obviously this is going to get tested out before it gets put up for market. That's the wrong one. The little one goes in there. I didn't see it laying in there. I knew about it, I just didn't see it. So, anybody that started writing comments already, I'm fixing it right now. A lot of times this one's missing just for that reason. Somebody will change the filter and forget about this, and this is the only thing holding it down on there then. And if anybody's wondering, the date code on this engine is 2001. So right now this thing's 24 years old. And it's still in pretty good shape. And I will end up changing the oil filter once I'm confident that I have all the gas out of the crankcase. So it's not like I'm forgetting that. That'll get done later. I know. Everybody's looking at this clamp right here. I'm going to put it back on. There we go. And the oil's already full. I checked that when I added oil to it. So now we're going to put this up in the air and look at the blades. Alright, so just in case anybody's wondering, here's the blades. The deck's a little bit dirty. There you can see that edge. This is actually sharp enough. I'm not even going to resharpen these. You know, there's basically no chips missing out of there. You know, that's a nice smooth edge. And it's pretty sharp. It's almost as sharp as new, which, you know, if you look at it, they're not a razor edge. They're just close. And these here are plenty good enough that they don't need to be sharpened. You know, and it'll be priced accordingly. Now, since we're under here, we can see this transmission. It looks pretty good. It's nice and dry. So that's a good sign. All right, so we checked the oil. We put more gas in it. So now we're going to start this up and let it run a little bit. It is going to smoke because there was a lot of gas in the oil, so there's a lot of oil in the muffler. So it's definitely going to smoke. see, this actually came out pretty nice. I am going to check and make sure that the fuel's not leaking. In another couple days I'll take the intake off and you know, make sure it's not wet or anything. I'll keep an eye on the carburetor and a little bit more test driving on this, you know, and I'll be satisfied with it. Now you can see it was smoking pretty good. Like I said, it was going to smoke, and for a little while there I was worried that it might need a head gasket because the smoke didn't go away right away. But you know, within like 5 minutes that smoke was totally gone. You know, if it would have been a head gasket, it would have kept on smoking. So, you know, this one here I got pretty lucky on. Need a little bit of attention on the carburetor. I put a fuel shut-off valve on it, and a little bit more test driving on this, and I think it's going to be ready to go. So, you know, this one wasn't too bad. But this is like a 24-year-old riding mower, and it was actually kept in pretty nice shape. You know, the blades were sharp on it. I looked at the belts. The belts are all good. And you saw it cutting grass there a little bit. And you know, this one's got the cast iron axle on the front. It's actually a pretty nice little tractor, but it's just a riding mower. It's not a garden tractor like the bigger Toros. Just a riding mower. But yeah, finally we're getting back into doing riding mowers here. So there's going to be a couple more. The errands that you saw earlier in a clip, you know, we're going to get to that one pretty soon. But I do have a couple other things I got to do repairs on, so we're going to be working on those. And we'll catch you in the next video. Now this is where you're going to want to hit subscribe, because there will be a follow-up video about the carburetor.